Okay, we're going to just have a look at how we decipher all the information that's in our two main windows. So the two main windows of Pro Tools are the Mix and the Edit window, and we're going to start with the Edit window. So all the stuff along the top, this top rectangle here, which you can also see here, my screen is in dark mode, but it's essentially the same thing. So there is the toolbar up there. It's highly customizable, and we'll talk about how to do that in 1 second. And so the whole top section is called the toolbar. Then we have rulers and the timeline in this next kind of rectangular section. And then the main section of the edit window is the tracks display, where we can see all our tracks, whether they be MIDI or audio tracks, whatever they might be. And our master fader volume is also there when there's a master fader, so all that stuff will show up in your tracks menu. And then on the sides of the tracks display, there is a tracks window and groups of tracks window, so those kind of go hand in hand. And I'll show you how to get rid of and show and hide the tracks window, and also a clips window over here. So we're calling those side columns here from the Pro Tools textbook. So let's have a quick look at these, and then we'll look at what these chunks of buttons in the toolbar are. So first and easiest thing is, if you want to customize anything in the toolbar, there is a little drop down at the very top right, and you can turn on and off things that you will want to see or not in that window. So notice I just clicked expanded transport, and now I can see my pre-roll and post-roll and fade-in options, things like that. We have our MIDI tools here. These are the MIDI controls, little wizard Harry Potter here, the conductor track turning on and off. And on the left side we have these four are the edit modes, so shuffle, spot, slip, and grid. And grid actually has two possibilities, which we'll talk about. So these are our edit modes, and there are 4.5 of them. Then we have our zoom controls. So just in case maybe the waveform is very, very small and hard to see in a certain zoom level, you can actually just change that with up and down here to see. So it's just a view. You're not actually changing the volume of anything there. So these guys are our zoom controls, and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here are zoom presets. So you can click on those and it will memorize different, you can save different zoom settings in. So those are pretty useful. Then these are all our editing tools. So things like a grabber to grab entire clips, and a selector tool to just select kind of freely. It's actually not totally, it's not totally selecting freely at the moment, because notice that it's sticking to these chunks, this grid. So that's because of my edit mode, that's in grid mode. If I turn off grid mode, if I want totally smooth selections in between beats and things, then I can put it in slip, and we'll talk about those in great detail. I'm just going to leave it in grid because this is recorded to a click anyway, and the grid goes to my click. Then we also have like a trimmer so that I can cut off and edit audio this way or that way. And some other cool things like a scrubber and a pencil tool and a zoom tool. So all that stuff is pretty good. I have no idea what I just did there, but I'll just undo it. This is our main counter. So there are actually lots of options for what we see in the counter. So this is just some sort of mathematical representation of where I've selected in my session. So you can see right now it's set to bars and beats, and I'm going to hide the sub counter for a second. So bars and beats. So that means my selector currently is at 6th bar, 2nd beat. If I select somewhere else, 3rd bar, 2nd beat. I also have minutes and seconds that I can choose. Great for radio and things. Time code for film. Feet and frames. Samples if you need that. And then of course If you want to see two of those things represented at once, you can show the sub counter from that same dropdown. So then we could say have bars and beats, but also know exactly how many minutes and seconds are going by. And we'll talk about all these little icons and things in here later. But again, this is the main counter. So far we've got our edit modes, our zoom controls, our edit tools, and the main counter. Then we have our grid and nudge settings here. And this is our transport controls for playback, record enable, stopping, loop playbacks in here, post-roll and pre-roll are there. And again, if you don't see those, that's because expanded transport might not be on. So if I turn off expanded, then I just get stop, play, record, a couple other things. So I almost always have expanded on. And then these are our MIDI controls, Harry Potter here. Turn on the click on and off, that's kind of a good one. Some MIDI editing choices here that are pretty useful as well. The overall session tempo and our meter, all those things are there. And there's more, of course. So we won't worry about them right now, but we can turn things on and off by using that top right drop down. Then we have our next rectangular chunk of the screen here, which is our timeline, which is the top here, which is one way of setting where you're going to start and stop playback, but it's just as easy to just make a selection and that will control. Notice that it's linked right now to the timeline. So my selection will start the playback here and stop the playback there. Then we also have a whole group of other rulers we have. Right now we see samples, tempo, and in case there are tempo changes in here, you would see them showing up like one of these little quarter notes with a number on it. And markers, those are super useful, but there's a bunch more too. We can have our minutes and seconds ruler, a couple of time code rulers. So all those rulers, meter, key, if I want to place chord changes in there, all that stuff is in this little librarian menu here. And this whole section is called the timeline and rulers. So I'm going to get rid of a few that I don't really care about all that much at the moment. Markers, definitely. Meter's good. I don't care about key and chords really. Okay. Next, we have our overall track selectors here. We can solo and mute, as we learned before. We can arm tracks for recording here. You can change the view of what you're seeing inside the track playlist. So I can go from clips to notes in this case, because this is a MIDI track. If it's audio, it would be waveform, volume automation, all kinds of good stuff is over here. And we will learn all of those things soon enough. And then we have our side bars here. So tracks is a list of all the tracks in the session. You notice I have one hidden. That's some guitar recording, maybe without any effects processing or something on it. I was using this session for a demo in a class one day, so clearly I didn't want to use that later on. But so I hid that track so that we'd only see these four. And you can also click and drag along here, and you can actually hide everything if you want to, and just see one thing, which is right now Superior Drummer. But I can also do my guitar track, and often this is really useful if you have a ton of tracks. It is so nice to be able to just quickly hide and show tracks here, basically hiding and showing what you're working on. So often that's maybe 8 mics for a drum, 8 tracks for a drum set or something. Maybe you don't want to see the other 94 tracks, and you just want to see your 6 drum tracks or your 8 drum tracks or whatever. So this is a great way to hide and show those. And then once we learn how to make track groups, those are really useful too. And those have their options right here as well. If you want to hide this, there is a tiny little arrow and line here that is just at the bottom of the track display. And I can click that and my tracks menu will go away. And then if I want it back, it's still down at that bottom left corner. And same thing for clips. We'll learn what the clips menu is for soon enough and use that. So again, little tiny line and arrow. Oops, and that happens all the time. Let's get that gone. Okay, there we go. Disappeared. I'm going to erase so I don't get that thing again. And then So opening and closing that guy, tiny little arrow and line to open up and close that. Now it's actually easier than doing that. It's than using that tiny little button that's so hard to see. It's actually a lot easier to just go to this same drop down you use to customize the toolbar and just click on those two. Clip list and track list are right there. So you can toggle those really easily. There's also a MIDI editor that can show up right in this same edit window, which is pretty useful. So there's some good stuff. I'm just going to leave my track list. No, let's put the clip list back. So clip list is a list of all the audio available to your session at that time. So audio and MIDI will show up, and you'll see if here's say a little bit of guitar audio, right? Notice that when I just selected that, it told me where that audio file was in my list. And if I make a separate clip, I right away get notice how it's kind of grayed out. So the main clip is bold. That's like the parent clip. And then these gray ones are subsets of those clips. And notice it tells you which clip you're dealing with at any one time, which is pretty cool. There's those two at once. Notice it selects them. So that's kind of nice because you can there's some things you can do that are easier to do from the clip list than say trying to do it from over here in the edit window. And it's a nice list that you have of everything that you need. And then if you have some audio that you've imported but you didn't want to pull it in to the actual edit window yet, you can store it over here and then drag it in where you want to use it. So that's pretty useful too. Let's see. I think that's everything for the edit window. Let's head over to the mix window real quick. Hopefully we remember all the titles, but remember you can just use this drop down to help tell you what you're seeing and toggle it on and off. Transport is playback, zoom controls. You can see which ones they are. And it's good to kind of get used to knowing what your favorite workflow is here. I'm going to hop over to the mix window. Okay. So in the mix window, here's a regular audio track. I'm going to move it over to the left here just so we can see it. These guys are all instrument tracks and a click and a master fader. So the main one that actually has an actual audio track on it right now is the guitar. So you'll notice it has one insert on it. So this inserts set of, if you click on any of these spaces, you get a slot for a plugin. So inserts are for adding effects, whether they be software effects or outboard effects like hardware effects that you've plugged in somehow to your interface. Those guys will show up here and you can add them directly to the track. So if I play my guitar track and then add, I don't know, some other effect, this is where we would do that. I don't know what I want. Let's do something weird. Maybe just, it's already got some stuff on it. Let's do a phaser. So this is where you directly add effects to your, that's kind of fun, right? Doesn't sound too great in the mix, but you get the idea, right? Doesn't sound great in that mix, but doesn't really matter. So this is where we have our software plugins we can put in. So inserts are where we do that. Sends will send the signal of this track out to, say, another track or a bus. Maybe you have a special headphone mix that you want to set up. This is a nice place to create a headphone mix and send each instrument that you want the headphones to get over to that headphone mix. And you can adjust those volumes right there, which is pretty nice. So you can set up a bus and you'll see that, oh, I'm going to send out. And then you just have to set where this goes. Pretty easy. We'll learn how to do it later. But send the audio signal out to another track or another, wherever you're going to send it. You can have physical outputs that it goes. It can be a bus to another track, all kinds of things. Then we have the I/O settings, so input, output, I/O. Top one is input, so if I'm going to record more of that guitar track, how do I get that guitar in there? Well, this is where you tell Pro Tools where the input is. So you plug the guitar into your interface, and then your interface should show that the available inputs on the interface should show up. right? So my interface happens to have two inputs, so they both show up. I choose the one I plug my guitar into, most likely for recording a guitar track, and then I'm good. Then if I hit I for input monitoring or I record enable the track, I'll be able to hear that guitar play back. I'll know how my input is sounding. And then once I've recorded to the track and I want to play back, or if I'm recording and listening or input monitoring and listening, where is that track signal going to go so that I can hear it? Most of the time that's just out to your master fader. And this is where you choose that. So the output of the track and the input of the track. So how am I going to get audio into the track is the top one. And where does the audio go after it's on that track is the next one down, the output. So annoying with these. I don't know. It doesn't warn me, nothing. It's just I import when I'm done and I lose 10 minutes of video and audio with no warning. Awesome. Okay, so we got to the inputs, outputs. We're going to skip the next two things and save them for later. The next item is the pan knob. And you'll notice there's also pan and a number there. So with the pan knob, this is about moving the audio signal from left to right. So from left speaker to right speaker. So here we go. I'm going to move it to the left and right a little bit just so you can hear. Right now. And down the middle. So down the middle means equally on both speakers. And stereo tracks will have instead of one knob, they'll have two knobs, and that's for each lane of that audio track's information. So there's already a left and right channel to a stereo track, and you can choose where either of those channels go. Usually it's all the way to the left on the left channel and all the way to the right on the right channel. And then we have input monitoring and record enabling. So we will learn exactly how those work soon enough. I'll put it on my right so that there's not. Okay, input monitor will give us a little bit of audio coming from somewhere. Input monitor, and that lets us know. So if neither of these, input monitoring and record enabling, if neither of them are selected, you can have the right input here, but notice we're not seeing anything going into Pro Tools, or at least we're not seeing what's going in. It's going in, it's just nothing's happening to it. If you want to monitor what audio is going in, you can input monitor. So I for input monitoring, and now we're seeing whatever audio is coming in from that input. And then you get the same thing when you record enable, but as soon as you stop recording, you will lose it. Right? So record enabled, you get the same feedback there. You see things are happening on that input. And then notice this blinks red. That means it's ready to record, but it's not recording yet. It will go solid when you start recording. And then we already know what solo and mute do. Finally, this slider is for the output volume. So again, has nothing to do, you don't turn this up or down if you want to get the guitar going in louder. Right? You plug it in. Your interface is responsible for how hot the signal is going in. This guy just turns down how much of it you hear, right? So that's what's coming out of the track and back to your headphones. So output only. This has nothing to do with input volume, right? There's no gain on this or anything. So it's just the returning signal from your audio on the track. And I don't know if I talked about it or not, but we have our track windows here, just like we do before. So these guys. So on and off for different tracks in case if you've got 100 tracks, you want to be able to kind of focus on maybe, just your guitars or just your backup vocals. Well, this is a nice place to turn on and off and deal with groups as well. And that's pretty much it for the mix window. And then there's just a couple other windows we want to deal with. So one is the transport. And when I took the Pro Tools instructor course, my instructor always called this the dreaded transport. And it's because this window is kind of annoying, right? It's always kind of in the way. It's always on top no matter where you go. So almost no matter what, it's covering up something else that you might want to click on or see. So it's slightly annoying. And everything in this transport window is available in your edit toolbar. So one thing I will say is that if you're over here in the mix window, maybe it's nice to see some of that information floating around over there. But if you're in the edit window, it's almost totally useless because you have access to everything you see here up in the regular toolbar in the edit window. And you can also adjust, just like you do with the toolbars drop down, what you see, you can adjust what you see in the transport as well. So you can, get rid of some of these things and make it a little bit cleaner, but still the useful stuff tends to be in the expanded. So the dreaded transport, probably aren't going to use it much. And then we also have the MIDI editor, which also has a track list in it, so that any MIDI instrument that you have in here, you can toggle whether you're seeing that MIDI data or not. So again, we'll deal with how to deal with this MIDI information later, but this is a great way to work with MIDI instruments. Often you're just working on one at a time, so maybe I just want my piano, and there we go, so just the piano bit, right? And then also, we saw it before, the score editor. Again, you can kind of, when you have MIDI data in here, you can kind of hear it a little bit. You can actually even adjust these notes a little bit. And you also get this track view. So if you did need to print out a little bit of music for a musician or something, so that you get a much more kind of expressive, real human playing some of this music that's in MIDI right now, you might need to give them a score. So a piano player can totally play this, but not everything looks great. So for instance, a drum track should not look like this. It's just guessing what this MIDI data means for this MIDI instrument. So that doesn't look great, but you can also affect what gets printed out and what you see with this track thing. And I never print stuff out, so I doubt it's difficult, but just so you know, you can print these things out. You can print out, just the piano part and MIDI. And I imagine if this is just a view thing, there'll be some sort of option like that when you go to print it too. And I think that's about it, right? You can play back from here too, by the way. So I think you probably get the idea. So you get a little bit of info here, and we can go into more depth into these windows more and more as we go. The main goal of today was to get through the mix and edit windows so that when you're looking at all these potential things to click on and view and figure out, hopefully now it looks a little bit less intimidating. It's really, and then remember, you can find the names of things by hovering over them. What they do, stop, play, record, even the edit tools will have a popover. And then also, you should, click on things and see what you actually like seeing, and then limit so it's not so distracting if there's too many things up there. So I can add or subtract my zoom controls. I can add or subtract transport. I can add or subtract the expanded part of the transport. I can also get the clip list up this way. There's also a MIDI editor here. So all those things. All right. So hopefully that makes things a little less intimidating. I know there's a lot to see. So play around, keep playing around, have some fun. It should get easier and more comfortable all the time. Until next time, see you later.